Good evening. My name is Thurman Greco, and the name of this show is Let's Live with Thurman Greco, and it's coming to you from scenic downtown Woodstock, New York, on Educational TV Channel 23. And it's also coming to you from YouTube on the Let's Live with Thurman Greco channel. And this evening, we have a very special guest. And this has offered an opportunity to myself and my listeners and my students and people that I know, an opportunity to see how a healer works with a person whose body has been injured in some way. I know that when I was going to massage school, later when I was in teaching reflexology and teaching Reiki, we refer to how to work with a person when that person has been injured in some way. And always it's theoretical, because you can't just snap your fingers and conjure up somebody with a broken knee or a broken foot or whatever. And I know that when I was at PMTI many, many years ago in Washington, D.C., we didn't really have anybody who had problems within the student body. So my massage teacher went to a friend of hers who was a nurse massage therapist. And that woman came and gave a series of lectures to us about how to work with a person who has sustained an injury of one kind or another. And of course it was just all theoretical, and none of it, we couldn't identify with any of it. And it was actually frightening, because she kept talking about the things that you need to do and the things that you don't need to do, and there was no person there. And so it was a very, very trying time for me, and for the rest of the students as well. Well, we have with us tonight a model who has sustained some injuries through an automobile accident at Christmas time on the 26th of December. And it is now March, and you can tell that she is still dealing with these injuries. And you know, people, even if you're in a small wreck where everybody's going 2 miles an hour and somebody taps your fender or whatever, you do injure your body to a certain extent. And of course, this injury, Jeanette, who is my daughter, was run over by a pickup, and she sustained broken arms, broken hands, broken legs, broken feet, broken spine, broken hips, broken pelvis. Her lungs were punctured. She sustained injuries to her liver, and on the other side and now I'm having to the spleen. I'm having such trouble since Jeanette's injury to her spleen, even understanding it. Because I have, since 1980, taught people about the spleen and what it does and how it works. And they now, at Albany Medical Center, if you have an injured spleen, they do entirely different things with it. It was a very, very interesting thing. They went in, they gave her a lot of Novocaine, they went into the spleen, and the spleen was injured. And the spleen is essentially a sac holding a lot of blood. And usually, used to in times past, and probably still in many parts of the country and of the world, if someone's spleen is injured, the doctor goes in and he grabs the spleen like this and pulls it out of the body. And the idea is to get it out of the body with the smallest amount of blood leaking out into the rest of the body possible. Well, in this case, they inserted a needle and went into her spleen, and they took out all the blood that they possibly could, and they essentially shut her spleen down and allowed it to heal itself within her body, so they did not remove her spleen. And of course, those of you who are asking, well, what do you do? What happens if you lose your spleen? In reality, we live without our spleen. The spleen is very, very important to us as we are young, as we are babies, as we are children, young adults, but as we get older, it becomes less and less critical. So we repaired, the doctor, the physician, allowed Jeanette's body to repair its spleen. And then, of course, the liver was injured, and the body repaired itself. So we had all of these things happening. And so tonight we had an opportunity to bring her in, and I am going to show, I'm going to demonstrate some techniques that massage therapists, Reiki practitioners, reflexologists, people, everything that I'm going to demonstrate tonight is a realistic, uncomplicated technique that you can use to offer comfort and healing to someone. And of course, I do teach in my Reiki classes, I do teach that if for some reason you happen to pass a wreck by the side of the road, and you want to get out, you want to pull over to the side, and you want to get out of your car or stay in your car and send Reiki to the injured people, that it is a respectable thing to do. And so Reiki is definitely appropriate for this. And as a matter of fact, I would have been very grateful if anybody who had seen Jeanette on the tarmac in front of the Albany airport, or who had seen her ambulance passing, if someone had sent distance Reiki to her, I send you my gratitude, because I do know that people did send healing to Jeanette, because she has healed. It is an amazing thing. But in addition, I'm going to show you some techniques. I have descriptions, of these techniques here with me tonight. If you want copies of these techniques sent to you, send me a self-addressed stamped envelope to Thurman Greco, 31 Tannery Brook, Woodstock, New York, and I will send these to you. I will send copies of these. And I will also read these to you tonight, because I want them to be exact. It's one thing to have me say, okay, now you put the hand here, but I want you to understand what's happening. But if you would like to have these paper copies for your own practice, for your own work, for your own, when you offer healing to someone, do not hesitate to contact me, and I will send them to you. So tonight I have my daughter, Jeanette Nearhood, who has sustained a lot of injuries and who spent some time in the hospital, and is now home and is now working. And we are still visiting with our physicians. We keep going all the time to see the physicians, and we're down to, I think we have 2 physician visits left before we think about going home. So and going home, and meaning not having to go back. And all I have to say about this whole experience is that I have never in my life experienced a group of people who were so focused on Jeanette's well-being and healing and health. It just amazed me how they treated her, how they interacted with her, and how the people at Albany Medical Center interacted with each other, and how they worked with each other, and their positive attitude, and the pride of workmanship, and the communication, the training. It's just, Albany Medical Center is an amazing place. And you know, it's right here at our doorstep. It's a wonderful opportunity for a person who is in need of repair, whose body needs repair. So we're going to start off now. We're going to start off working at Jeanette's head, and we're going to go down and end up with her feet. Now we have both arms, both hands have braces in the wrists, and then she still has a boot on that one foot, and we have a brace, a spinal brace that she wore and still wears, quite often still wears. So we're going to start off by saying that for whatever reason, let's assume that for whatever reason you feel a need to offer Reiki to someone who has been injured and who for whatever reason the body is broken. So what we're going to do is I'm going to come over here at Jeanette's head, and I'm going to go first right down to the shoulders. My hands are right over her shoulders. I bring my hands to the spine. Now you do not want to, anything that you do, if it hurts someone, back away immediately. So you may think that your touch is so light that how could that possibly work? Don't worry about that at all. It's going to work. So I like to begin when there is an injury or an illness. I like to begin here, right at the base of the skull, at the occipital ridge, and right at the neck. And the reason I like to begin here is because this is where we carry all of our stress. So while Jeanette was sustaining injuries to herself, while she was riding in the ambulance, while she was in the hospital over a month, while she was in the ICU, all of this time, her neck, while it may not have been specifically injured like the spine was, or like her hips were, or like her arms were, there is a lot of stress because this is where the human body carries its stress. So if you don't know anything else to do, and you know, sometimes when we encounter a situation like this, the brain just blanks out. It's like, oh, what am I going to do now? Remember, you have muscle memory, and everything is going to work out all right. Just don't worry about forgetting something. Don't worry about whatever. Just place your hands gently right close to the neck, and with your fingers hold the neck, and just gently, gently, gently move up toward the base of the spine, of the skull, onto the occipital ridge. And then just gently, gently keep these fingers there together. Now, once you have made contact with the person, then you want to, if you're calm enough and if you can, then you want to think about your symbols. So you've got your hands on the occipital ridge, and you're going to do the chokeray. And I do 3 chokerays. And then you're going to do the Seiheki. And I'll do 3 Seihekis. And then you're going to do the Hon Shaze Shonin. And I do 3 Hon Shaze Shonins. And then I'm going to go back and do 3 chokerays. And I call this a chokeray sandwich. And what that does is it's healing what I believe to be the whole person. The past, the present, and the future. And of course we know from our visits with Fiona Saxman that the past, the present, and the future do come together all in one place at one time. So that's what you're doing. You're just very, very quietly and gently bringing together the past, the present, and the future right at the base of the skull, at the occipital ridge. And that's very calming, it's supportive, it cannot hurt. And you know, if the person that you're trying to work with has got some kind of a brace on the neck, you can go right around the brace. Don't worry about, do I need to remove this piece of equipment or whatever. Just work with it. Go around it, go on it, go under it. It's there because somebody who is trying to heal her has decided that she needs it or he needs it. So it's no problem at all. Then, once you have got yourself and you've got the occipital ridge, you've got the symbols, and if you're not comfortable doing the symbols, then don't do the symbols. You know, Reiki has a way, once you bring it in, once you have the intention, it has a way of doing what it needs to do. But one of the things that I really like to do is I like to work the ears. Ears are very, very spiritual parts of our body, and they are extremely sensitive. And we've got all kinds of nerve endings are on your ears. So this is what you want to do. If you can get to the ears, if you can only get to one ear, go for it. Ears are very, very good for healing. And you know, sometimes if a person is on the side of the road, if a person is in the hospital bed, I know that when I first went in to see Jeanette, there wasn't much room for me. There were all of these people and all of this equipment and all of these things were happening. And you know, here I was, the mother. and I'm sure that they felt like, well, she needs to be here, but we need to have space to work with Jeanette as well. So if you can just work with the ears, and you know, you can work, as long as you can get to the ears, you can do it. And if you can't get to the ears, if you can't get that close to the person, send distance healing to the ears. Because then you're going to offer healing to the entire body and to the spiritual body. And so that's a wonderful thing. And then you're going to, if you can get to her, if you can get to the person, you put your hands together, you're going to go down to the chin and just let it drop and follow the chin right around the edge of the jawbone and up to the base of the ears. And go in small, when you do this, small circles, little dime-sized circles going around at the base of the ears and going along in front of the ears and going along, all along the front of the ears, and then you're going to go along the hairline if you can get to the hairline. You know, a lot of times we sustain very minor injuries. And in our culture, if somebody falls or if they're tripped or whatever, we just say, oh, it's okay, it's okay. And we try to go on about our way. And it's important to realize that even if it's very minor, you have in some manner injured your body. Your body has been injured in some way. And you need to honor those injuries. And an easy way to honor those injuries is with Reiki, and it's with reflexology, and it's with massage therapy as well. So you can also do little dime-sized circles all along the edge of the hairline. And you know, this is not rocket science. These are all things that have been used on people since the beginning of time, and they've worked. These are things that have helped. And to apply this type of a stroke to a person who has sustained an injury is not going to bother the person. It's not going to bother the nurses that are working on that person. It's not going to bother. And also, now you've got your hands right in front of the ears and behind the ears, and then you have your thumbs and you're going along the forehead. And you're going to go like this. And then you're going to go over the eyebrows. And if nothing else, if you are doing nothing else, you are at least relaxing a person who has just sustained an injury. And that's extremely important. That's important. You cannot heal until you can begin to relax a little bit and to assess, for your body to assess on its physical level what has just happened to it. And sometimes when we are injured, at the time that we're injured, we understand what's happening, but sometimes we don't. Sometimes it's so fast we don't really understand what's happening. When Stephen King wrote a book about writing, which was a very interesting book. It was a memoir about himself as a writer. And he does talk in that book about the injury that he sustained when the man ran over him on the road. And he talks about people talking to him, the emergency guys talking to him, and people communicating with him. And so, and if you hear that someone has been injured, it's totally fine to send Reiki. It's totally fine to send healing. And it's totally fine to send positive thoughts and kind thoughts. So as long as you work along the head, and you can notice that the people who are working with the person, you're at one end of the body, and the EMTs and the nurses and the technicians are down at the other end. And this can also happen later. Jeanette was in the ER for several hours, and then we went into the ICU and we saw her. So that by the time we saw her, she had had a lot of work done to her, and she was all bandaged up. So that by the time we got there, were allowed in to the ICU, things were calm for her, which is really nice. Now, we've started off at the base of the neck, and we're coming up now, and we're coming to the occipital ridge, and we know that this is where there's all of the stress, and it's okay to go back to the neck, and it's okay to go back to the occipital ridge. And then it is also okay to go over the shoulders and put your hands right on the shoulders. We carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, so it's always okay to do this. And you can, if this is all you can do, if you can't get any further, if you can't get any closer, if you're not comfortable doing anything else beyond this, this is enough. This is enough. So you don't have to worry about not doing enough, or you don't have to worry about doing too much, because if you touch the person, then you will feel the person receiving the healing. Now, after we have done this, we're going to put one hand on the shoulder and then one hand on the wrist. We had both of Jeanette's arms they had splints or whatever. Whenever I see these things, I cannot bring up the word for what it is. But what you do is you've got one hand under the shoulder, and then you bring it down and you put it right under the elbow. And if this is the least bit uncomfortable, do not hesitate to move it, because you're not there to offer any discomfort. And if you are the least bit worried about creating problems, about being in the way, about whatever, you can always back off and send this healing from a distance. And it's also very, very okay for you to have your hand on the shoulder and one hand on the wrist and to just hold it. And if that doesn't work, then you can set it down and you can hover over. You know, Reiki doesn't care whether you are 1 inch or 1,000,000 miles. Reiki is there for the healing, so it's okay. And I am going to bet that you feel it. Even people who are brand new at Reiki will admit to feeling the healing once they are in this situation of offering it to a person. Now, it is well within the realm of reality to hold the hand and the wrist where all of the bandages are, where you feel like the injuries are. And if there are tubes and things, then just hold your hands away. Just lift them up and hold them away. And you don't want to impose yourself on the person's healing. Because with the case of Albany Medical Center, those people knew what they were doing. And they were working from sincerity and a desire to heal. I really felt that the whole time. Now, we talked earlier this evening about the spleen and the liver. The liver was injured. And you know, the liver repairs itself, so that was very good. And the spleen is now, although mostly inert, it is there still to provide healing to Jeanette whenever it's needed. So one of the things that you do is you very gently bring one hand over the liver and one hand over the spleen. And you can feel, and if you feel nothing, that is okay. Because sometimes when a body or a body part has been injured, there will be nothing. You will feel either nothing, or you will feel cold, or you will feel as if something is plugged up or something is stopped up, and that's okay. You can gently, you don't even have to touch the body, just gently tap the area, and you notice my hands are over above the body. You tap the body, and then you offer. And you can say, you know, if you're in a situation where you are comfortable, say you're working with a person and they're in the hospital room, or they're wherever they are, they're home. It is okay to just leave your hands there for a long time. You can leave them there until the feeling changes and the things that you sense calm down, or you can leave them until things get to become a little cold. Or you can, and if they get to be very, very hot, and you feel like it's very, very hot, you can bring your hands away for a moment and give the energy a chance to gather itself together again. Now, we are at the spleen and the liver. Also, Jeanette had some injuries to her spine, and she had some injuries to the hips, and she had a broken spine, a spine broken in several places, the hips broken in several places, the pelvis was broken. So we had all these different breaks. And so it was okay if you run across a person who has had some injuries. It is okay for you just to gently put your hands on that place. It's fine. And you know, as a matter of fact, sometimes people who have been in accidents, especially if they've been in household accidents or if they've been automobile accidents, and they have first been taken to the hospital or to an emergency center or whatever, people may not be aware of what exactly is broken. I know with Jeanette, they worked on her for several hours and they were not totally sure. I mean, you know, they worked on the hands and they worked on the arms. They did things for the spleen. That happened immediately. They put, you know, they did things immediately. They did the more immediate things. And then I can remember coming in to see Jeanette one morning, and of course, every day, the grandkids, Jeanette has 2 children who are in their 20s. They're almost middle-aged. And they were visiting with her at the time. So they were out, we were all outside in the emergency room. And so afterwards, every morning I would drive them in to Albany, and I would drop them off. We couldn't take but 2 people in the hospital at a time. So I'd go over across the street and I would sit in the Panera, and I would let Zoe and Sophia stay with Jeanette because I felt like that was the most important thing, and it did turn out to be a good decision. So what I'm coming up to is this. We started off with a certain evaluation. We started off with people saying, okay, there's a broken this and a broken that and a bruise this and a bruise that, and we did this and we did that. 3 days later, they were still adjusting what they felt was broken. And I know that one of these wrists, I'm not sure which one of these wrists ended up with pins. And that didn't happen immediately. That happened several days later. So it was like they would come in, and they came in, I know, one morning about 1 o'clock, and they took her to surgery, and they did surgery on one of the feet. And that was several days later. It was like, it took several days for them to completely and clinically assess all of the damage that had been done. And you know, Albany Med works 24 hours a day. They didn't wait to say, well, we'll look tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Their operating room is open 24 hours a day. They came one morning at about 1 o'clock and they said, listen, we found a broken foot. We're going to take you in and get it fixed. We're going to set it and we're going to take it. Off they went. We all showed up the next day to say hello to our Jeanette, and she had a new bandage. She had a new piece of equipment around a foot. And so you don't know in the beginning what has happened. And I can remember 20 or 30 years ago, a friend of mine fell down some stairs, and she didn't fall down very many. She fell like 3 or 4. And everybody said, oh, it's okay, it's nothing. And she did too, it's okay, it's nothing. And then the next day she was saying, this doesn't feel quite right. This doesn't feel right. Oh, well, it's okay. It was like maybe 2 weeks later when people finally realized, she had really damaged a hip. So you just don't always find out everything that happens immediately when it happens. So when you offer Reiki or reflexology or any kind of healing to a person who has sustained an injury, there should always be in your mind, in your heart, in your emotions, realizing that you are offering healing to what you have found, but also what you haven't found yet, because other things may find. And in addition, things that you may feel are there that are injuries, those may clear up pretty easily, quickly. So, the body is a continual mass influx. And I know that when a person is in a hospital or at home, a lot of times they don't even turn over for several days. I don't think Jeanette turned over for weeks. So, there is this sense of fatigue. There is a sense of what it takes to heal. Healing takes a lot. It takes a lot of food. It takes a good food. It takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot. I do know one thing that happened that I thought was beautiful. Several people came up to me while Jeanette was still in the hospital, and they said, well, I understand Jeanette has got some broken bones, and I said, yes. And they all said, well, you've got to go down to the village apothecary and you've got to get vitamins. I thought that was a lovely thing to say. And it was interesting that they all said the same thing. So I thought, okay, this is really good. And then it was not long until a physician came and said, okay, now here's the list of vitamins that you take. And apparently, from what I can remember, everybody was saying you have to wait until everything is set, and you have to wait until you know that this is how it should be, and then you start taking the vitamins. So I thought that was very, very interesting. So I am here now. We've come down from the head, and we're working on the neck, and we're working all the way down the hips, the pelvis, the spine. Now, I'm going to go down now. We're going to go down to the knees. Interestingly enough, nobody said anything about Jeanette having broken knees. And I thought that was very interesting. Who knows what we're going to find later. But we didn't find at the time broken elbows, and we didn't find broken knees. And I'll tell you right now, just having my hands along this person, and it doesn't matter whether you know the person or not. If you are in a situation where for whatever reason you feel called to offer Reiki, it is fine. You don't have to touch the person. You don't have to know who they are. The energy knows what to do. And you don't have to worry about, well, maybe I'm doing the wrong thing, because you're there. And for whatever reason, you have been called to be there. I know that when I first began teaching Reiki to people, for some reason, I don't know why, I really felt like it was important that they learn what they had come to learn. And then, after a while, after meeting with these people through time, I realized that some of the people that I taught Reiki to were practicing Reiki, and some were not. So I divided people up into two categories: the Reiki practitioners and the Reiki carriers. And let me be very, very clear. It doesn't make any difference whether you practice Reiki or not. If you take the Reiki 1, the Reiki 2, the Reiki 3 attunements, you're learning it for a reason, and that is enough. You do not have to hang out a shingle. You don't have to tell people what you're doing. You will be using your Reiki in an appropriate way. That's the bottom line. That is the wisdom that I gained from being a teacher of Reiki. So here we go. Are your hands comfortable up here, honey? Mm-hmm. Okay. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, now I'm going to go down to the feet. And I'm going to go down to the feet, and I am going to offer some techniques, some massage movements, some whatever. I'm going to offer these to Jeanette's feet and legs. Now, like I said, I have all of these written down. I have them in paper. If you want them, you can have copies. No cost. All you have to do is contact me and let me know that you want them. Now, here we have one foot in a sock and another foot in a boot. And now, in the beginning, I don't think she started off, Jeanette did not begin in this boot. Jeanette began in a cast, yes, and they had to saw the thing off, and then they put this boot on. And so this is a good opportunity. This is a good opportunity if the person has two different situations for you to learn about what to do with two different feet. So with a person in a cast, you've got the two splints up there. It's possible to have knee splints. It's possible to have casts. It's possible to have all different kinds of pieces of equipment. Do not try to remove any of it. If it's there, then that's for somebody else. All that is here for you is for you to put your hands somewhere so that you can work with the feet. That's all. And there are several different things that you can do. And you try very, very gently. Begin very, very gently by rotating the ankle. And you're going to rotate the ankle clockwise and counterclockwise. And what you do is you're going to hold the heel of the foot in one hand, then you're going to take the other hand and hold the front part of the foot, and you are going to move this in rotations. And you're going to rotate the foot at the ankle. And what you're doing is you're creating a circle. Now, obviously, if that's what you've got on this other foot, that's not going to move. It's not going to go anywhere. So what you do is, instead of that, you're going to put your hands on the boot. And of course, there are different kinds of boots. You're going to put your hand on the boot, and then you're just going to gently offer Reiki. The Reiki can go through any boot made. It can go through any cast that has been made. It can go through any bandage. Do not worry. And you know, as if you know the person, this is an important thing. If you know the person, and let us say that maybe you went to the hospital or not, maybe the person never was in the hospital, maybe the person was treated outpatient and you ended up at the person's home or wherever, just wherever. Days, weeks have passed. And here you have a boot, or you have a cast, or you have something. Then it's okay. Just work with what you have. And just gently put your hands on the outside of the cast, on the outside of the splint, on the outside of the boot, and work without, you don't want to try to take any of it off, ever. That's between the person and the physician. And you know, the physicians, it's an interesting thing that I have learned. They know when it's time, or they appear to know when it's time. That's what I observed at Albany Med. So you're just going to put your hands on this boot. You're going to work around where the break is. And if you can, do not try to move anything. But if you can put your fingers on the top of the boot and just gently offer healing to the top of the foot. Just gently. Now, if what you have instead is a foot that does not necessarily have a boot, it does not have a splint, and it does not have a cast, then you can start moving the foot very gently. But very, very gently. And if there is any resistance, then stop. And this is your opportunity, if you can get around to where the toes are, to offer some Reiki to the toes and to move the toes, but very gently. And if the foot does not have a cast, does not have a boot, does not have a splint, then you can start working the inside of the foot where the arch is. That's a really, really nice part of the foot to offer some movement. One of the nice things about offering a little bit of movement to a foot is that you stimulate circulation, you stimulate movement, you move the heat around, you do all kinds of things that help the feet. And one of the things that you can do is you can offer some massage to the base of the toes, right at the very base of the toes. And also, if you have access to the outside of the foot, you can offer very light pinching to the outside of the foot, to the outer edge. But always, whenever you offer Reiki or reflexology to a body, and this includes the hands and the feet, if ever you're offering anything, you want to be very, very gentle. You want to be healing, loving, gentle. And you know, if for one moment you think, well, I'm afraid it's too much, then you can just stop and just offer. You can just offer Reiki. You can just offer a reflexology hold. You can offer a massage hold. You can offer a healing hold. Any of those things. You can do that. Now, one of the things that you can do is if you have 1 or 2 feet. In this case, we have 1 foot. Okay? Then what you do is you ask the person, can you take a deep, can you breathe in? Oh, and then breathe out. Can you breathe in? Can you breathe out? Can you breathe in? And as the person breathes in and breathes out, I believe the healing energy comes in and the other energy leaves. The tired energy that has done its job is now leaving. And I feel that that's very important. Another thing that you can do, if you've got a foot, you can offer light pinches to the outside of the foot. Okay, now we're going to go here. And you can also very gently, if you can very gently work the massage on the legs. One of the things that I like to do, if you can, is you can gently move the feet back and forth. You can rock them back and forth. Just gently, just a little, not much. And then, if you can, try the inner ankle. The inside of the inner ankle. So this is the inner ankle, and over here is the same. And of course here, you have a boot. So on the right foot, we have the inner ankle. On the left foot, we have a boot. And we do the same circular motion on the boot. It's symbolic more than anything else. It's energetic. And sometimes the energetic work is stronger than the actual physical work. So you're doing on the inner ankle, you're doing clockwise and counterclockwise. And we're going to do the outer ankle at the same time. And it's very possible that when you do this, that you will not feel one thing. But that's okay. And then finally, what you're going to do is you are going to hold your hand on the outside. You go to the outside ankle, and then you go up further. So that you're actually on further up than the ankle. Your palm is actually on the outer ankle. And on the case with the boot, it's on the boot. And you're going to breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in. And as before, when you breathe in comes the healing energy, and when you breathe out, out goes the used air. And so you breathe in and you breathe out. Now, it's really an important thing, if you can. One of the things that we learn in all kinds of healing modalities and in massage is that you want things to be balanced. If you're going to work one foot on one side and one foot, then you have to work the foot on the other. If you're going to, you want it to be balanced. Your goal with this kind of work is to work what you can. And if you cannot, then you can't. That's it. You're working with the reality of someone else's healing method, which is working on the physical body. So then what you do is you very gently, at the end of the session, take your hands and very gently offer healing energy. You're sitting at the foot of the person, you're going to offer healing energy from the head all the way down to the feet. And if you can, breathe in and then breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. Jeanette, this is sort of like the end of the session. Is there something that worked for you that stood out of all of the different things that were applied to you? If it didn't, that's okay too.
The neck.
The neck. Okay. That's where all the soreness is, and all the weight of the world is there. Absolutely. I did notice that when I was up on your abdominal area, working the spleen and the liver, that there was a lot of energy going there as well. And that was, of course, very close to the neck as well. And I want to thank you, Jeanette. You did a wonderful, wonderful job.
Thank you.
And I want to thank Ellen. Ellen, you did a wonderful job.
Thank you.
I really, really appreciate it all. If anyone has any questions, do not hesitate to contact me. I am at thurmangreco@gmail.com. If you'd like to have the handouts about different things you can do to the feet, do not hesitate to contact me and I will see that you get a copy. And thank you again. There are other Reiki and reflexology sessions available on YouTube as well. And everyone have a wonderful evening. And thank you again, Miss Ellen.